our guest is here a little bit early. If they're ready, they can give me a thumbs up and we can introduce and get right to it. Otherwise, I can wait. I'm just going to wait until they do this. No, we're going to, we're going to do? We're going to sit on the air, dead air, until he's ready. How about that? Okay, he's giving me the thumbs up. I just wanted to make him feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Joining us now from Under the Ring and the USA Today Network, we're very, very excited to welcome the one and only Phil Strum. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Phil.
Good. Thanks for inviting me. Good to see you guys, Jeremy and Joel.
Yeah.
We appreciate you joining us here. Let's just go ahead and get into it. The press conference, the media scrum after AEW Worlds End. You were the man who asked Tony Khan directly, Chris Jericho, has he been under investigation? Let me set this up for people who don't know. So Chris Jericho, it was on Nick Hausman's podcast, Rumor and Innuendo. He put out some rumor and innuendo regarding Chris Jericho and skeletons in his closet. He, in the same sentence, mentioned Jericho as Harvey Weinstein. There's been no official allegations towards Chris Jericho from anybody. It is all rumor and innuendo, internet speculation, but it dominated the conversation on Saturday before the pay-per-view. Chris Jericho got NDA chance. It was a big topic among certainly the online fan base, and Kylie Ray did leave a heart message on one of the posts in kind of an accusation towards Jericho, which does not confirm anything, by the way. I want everyone to know that it could have just been a supportive thing. It's not any confirmation. Nobody, I can't say this enough, nobody has issued an official allegation or come out and said anything official regarding Chris Jericho. Can't say that enough. Jericho has not commented on it. Regardless, it dominated the conversation at the press scrum. Tony Khan while talking to Julia Hart, Kevin from PWI asked, like, hey, there's been a lot of talk about sexual harassment and safety regarding female workers backstage. What does AEW do to combat that? Tony Khan said, we're the safest environment in wrestling. We look at our track record. We have a great record. We're the safest wrestling company in the world. Later in the press scrum, when it was just Tony, Phil, you asked Chris Jericho, you didn't beat around the bush. Jericho's been subject to a lot of internet speculation. Has anything been brought when it comes to Chris Jericho? Has Jericho been under any investigation? And Tony said, can't comment on internet rumor. We're the safest wrestling company. So I just to ask you on this, like, what did you make of Tony's answer for all of this?
It was kind of what I expected to get out of him. I think it's important for the media that's in those scrum rooms to be able to ask difficult, newsy questions. I think there's plenty of people in there that are there for different reasons. That's not for me to decide or judge. That's for AWPR to decide who they want in the room asking the questions. But, for me that morning, that started bubbling up on Twitter, and, you don't know if you don't know. So, you have that access to Tony Khan. I waited for the time for him to be by himself. It was not clear what order everything was going to go in, but I didn't want to put him in a situation where he had a talent sitting next to him that had to sit there during the answer, because it's not relevant to necessarily them to be the ones that have to answer it. So it was the answer I expected to get. I think it's important for the media to hold the companies to account. These are multi-billion, multi-million-dollar companies. And they have a responsibility to not only the employees that they have, but also, hundreds of independent contractors that they use every single week. So it's important for those people that are there to have safety, whether it's an HR thing, whether it's a number you can call and for, with no fear of retribution type thing. He didn't really answer much about kind of what the process is. He mentioned the policy. The policy has been going around online a little bit too, but I just felt the need. There were other journalists. I could think of John Alba. I could think of Mike McMahon and a few others online, either during the course of the scrum or afterwards, who were kind of saying, like, this is what you need to do in these situations, because you have the person running the company right there, and you have to be able to ask the question.
What was the general kind of feeling going into the room after the pay-per-view had ended? Because I know every show kind of brings a different group of people, not only coming into that scrum room, but also just a different mentality of what to ask or what's on people's minds. What was it like going into it today, or to Saturday?
I did not have any idea what to expect. This was actually the first media scrum I've done for AEW, because I've never been to an AEW pay-per-view before this past Saturday. I've done some of the media calls that they've had leading up to the pay-per-views, and I've had a number of AEW and Ring of Honor talents on my weekly podcast, which is Under the Ring for Wrestling Conversations. But I'd never been in one of those before. I've been in a lot of media scrums before, just for my normal work. But I didn't really. I knew what to expect from what I've seen of them, and kind of the free flowing way that they go and the length that they go. But I didn't really have a sense. To be honest with you, I didn't know a lot of the people in the room either. So I didn't know kind of who they were, where they were from, or what their media organizations were about.
Did AEW? Because this is one thing that comes up is people think journalists or just reporters or anybody in the room are afraid to ask these questions because they are afraid to lose type of access. You just mentioned, and I know from listening to your interviews, that you have a lot of AEW and ROH talent on your show. Were you worried about oh, I'm going to ask this question and now I'm not going to get any more AEW ROH talent on?
Not particularly. I think you have to be able to ask tough questions to people in power. I've had to ask tough questions to AEW and WWE people before, and I've never really had too many problems on the PR side of it. What's good about both of those companies, and I'll give shout outs to other companies that I deal with too that are very easy to deal with, from NWA to MLW and those and Impact too, is they have professional PR people, and if a PR person is worth anything, they will keep a line of communication going with the media that cover it. You're not, by nature, the relationship of a reporter and a PR person is automatically sort of adversarial. I told a PR friend of mine outside of wrestling a long time ago, if I ever need to write a tough story for what this person was the PR person for, I was like, you are a lousy source. If I can't get this story without talking to you, I am doing it wrong. I can go find other people that can set this straight for you. So it's I'm not too I AEW PR, Adam Hopkins, John Schneider, I don't foresee any issue with those guys. They're both very good at their jobs and they're both very professional.
I want to bring up this chat because I think this is relevant. You're in the media. You've done this for a while. Dave is saying, I think it's all in how you ask the question and not what the question is. Can you speak to this a little bit? Because I think this is something that our audience would benefit from understanding better.
Yeah, I like you said before, I just tried to ask it directly. I kind of also did see kind of the direction that the chatter about it was going online as I peeked at my phone a couple of times. So I kind of saw also what people were wanting to hear about. But I also didn't want to, at the same time, look, like you said, innocent until proven guilty. Chris Jericho has not actually even been accused of anything yet, technically. So, you're not talking about somebody who's committed a crime or has been arrested or something like that. You're going on speculation. So speculation, frankly, I'm not even sure I totally trust the source of. And because I don't know where their information came from. I'm not the reporter on it. So, I just tried to ask it as directly as possible when I asked it. Those press conferences can be tough. Somebody said the other day, they were trying to drag other media outlets. And I was like, press conferences, those scrums are not a very good gauge of journalistic quality. Because it's just, you're trying to figure out where your involvement fits into this format. Personally, as a reporter, and I haven't been a reporter regularly for a while, I've done a lot of it, but it's just not where my career is right this second. But I don't always I don't like press conferences very much. I don't like scrums very much. they're not fun. Some of them could be awful. And it's like I would prefer to have a back and forth with a source, if I need to, just a good conversation, because I feel like you get more when you're not trying to just jump over people and fit your stuff into what fits into the format.
I mean, you mentioned this was your first AEW press conference. I'm sure you've watched some of the media scrums in the past, but when it comes to wrestling press conferences, which had Andrew Zarian on, and people who watch these media scrums and you being there know, like, you have Tony Storm coming out completely in character.
Yeah.
Like, Tony Khan's answering the first question about this in the hat and the sunglasses, which, wasn't the best optics in the world. But yeah, like, you never know what you're going to get out of these press conferences, because the wrestlers, by nature, they are a character.
Yeah, and that's the problem with wrestling too, is that, and I've even found this in the interviews I've done over the course of my career for the last 16 years or so doing wrestling media, is just like, wrestlers aren't, like, they need to find the line of what they want to do in the interview. And I have a news background, so I'm not really, like, when Tony Storm was up there, I was like, I don't even know what to do with this, and I don't have any reason to participate in this. I'm not just going to jump in and be part of the routine. I couldn't come up with anything that I would want it to participate with. I appreciate what she's doing. I appreciate the work that she's doing, but like, it just didn't fit what I was going to be wanting to maybe talk about in that moment. I don't, that's the funny thing about wrestling though. Like, it's so different than any other genre, where you're talking to the person, but the person is also still kind of the character too, depending on how they play it.
Let's step away from, from the kayfabe vortex, as I call it, known as the press script. Let's talk about the show itself. You were there live. You said it was your first AEW pay-per-view live. What was your experience like compared to other shows you may have seen before?
AEW does a great job with their pay-per-views. To be honest with you, I've been running pretty hard since I got out of there on Saturday night. So I haven't read a whole lot of the response to the show from a critical standpoint yet. Nor have I seen it on TV because I didn't order it because I was there. But their biggest strength is their big shows, and if they continue to do that, then they're going to be in good shape, as long as they still continue to have good destinations for all of their big angles and their big matches. I'm a little surprised at the MJF finish, and then also my colleague from Wrestling Junkie, Rob Wolkenbrod, asked, I think it might have even been the last question of the entire scrum, what is MJF's contract status? Because that sure seemed like, to me, something's going on here if we're speeding to the end of this storyline and MJF is losing in the middle of the ring to Samoa Joe. And then I think it was Sean Ross Sapp that reported last night that his bio page came off of the AEW website overnight too. So, but those are the types of things you need to do in those situations. But overall, I thought the show was solid. I've been to AEW before. I've been to Dynamite. I've been to Collision. I've been to all the Grand Slams that have happened at Arthur Ashe Stadium. So, I've been to a number of their big shows before. So they always deliver. It's just sometimes it's just a lot. Like, it's like you have to go into it ready to watch a lot.
What were some standout moments for you on the show?
That's a good question. Personally, as a Long Islander, I enjoyed getting to see Willow and Statlander one-on-one on the 0 hour, just because Suffolk County versus Nassau County. I think they're two people that the company could feature a little bit more in the future. Copeland and Christian Cage was just a spectacle. There were all sorts of things going on with that. The fire that went out and then they had to redo the table and everything. It's just classic. You don't want to do something mechanical in a wrestling match because it could go wrong, like Hulk Hogan's motorcycle or Eddie Kingston's explosion or any of the other things we've seen go awry before in wrestling. Eddie Kingston and John Moxley was a heck of a way to culminate that tournament. And it gives Eddie Kingston so much credibility in anything that he does now with all the wins that they've set him up with, beating Claudio twice, beating Bryan, beating Moxley, and winning those championships. And he's such a good babyface. Like, he's such a good natural babyface, and you just wouldn't see him if you look at him at the first time and be like, good natural babyface right there. But he's such a good fight from underneath, just gritty kind of guy, just a real person. I even liked his like post-match thing that they posted. I think it was on social media where he's yelling at the guy like, "We're not doing a Martin Scorsese thing here. What are you doing?" But yeah, I really enjoyed Eddie winning that too, and I got to be there for Eddie Claudio back at Grand Slam too, so that was a fun one.
I love that they posted that video. It's like a 10-minute promo, and he's like, "We're gonna do Scorsese." He's like, "But you do a 10-minute promo. What are we doing here?"
They bring Giancarlo in there. He's like, "Giancarlo, come on, do it for me, Giancarlo, come on." Very great promo. Eddie Kingston absolutely rules.
Was there anything off air that stood out, or was it mostly just the on air stuff was good enough to get everyone by? Because there's a little downtime in pay-per-views, not as much as TV would have.
I can't think of anything that didn't air, like, or at least if it didn't air, I didn't know that it didn't air. Yeah, I can't think of anything they did. Like, it was it flowed pretty well. Like, I'll say too, like, watching them at home, because I think I've watched every AEW pay-per-view to this point. They can sometimes drag when you're watching at home, and in person it seemed to flow a lot better. Even the scrum, I think maybe other people in the room might have had other thoughts about it, but I was kind of ready for it. So it a little bit dragged towards like the last half hour or so for me, but it seemed like it at least had a rhyme or reason. Just, a lot of times in these scrums, people just repeat themselves too. So you got to kind of get past that, like, because there's only so many different ways you can answer the same sort of question. So, but I don't think there was much off air that happened.
Let me tell you, at home, those scrums drag. They absolutely drag, because it takes 40 minutes to get there in the first place. So like the pay-per-view ends, and then we're just sitting at home, and it's like, all right, can we start this? Can we move it along? Like, and then it never does.
For me, it was pretty cool to be in the Nassau Coliseum, in the back of the Nassau Coliseum, just because, as you could tell, I'm a lifelong New York Islanders fan, and I've been in that arena probably more times than probably any other arena anywhere, just in my life, having gone to Islander games since 1986. So like, it was pretty cool to be like working media in the Nassau Coliseum. So that was fun.
Yeah, I was going to say that building has a lot of history, but it also has a lot of problems, according to some people who are not having a good time there.
Yeah, I didn't really get to see any of that. I know somewhere in the past with Arthur Ashe, they had some of those same problems with the concessions and stuff like that too. At least on the first one. Yep. But the one thing about the Coliseum is that it's not heavily in use right now. Like, the only things that are there, I think, are the Nets G League team, and there's a indoor lacrosse team that plays there. But it's largely been replaced by UBS Arena and other venues in the region. The only thing was UBS Arena. I asked this on the pre World's End call to Tony Khan, of like why they chose the Coliseum. It's this old building; it's been there since 1972. But UBS Arena had hockey on Friday, St. John's Hofstra basketball on Saturday, and then Billy Joel's first concert in the UBS Arena was on Sunday. So kind of a full slate.
Yeah, you can't really bump Billy Joel.
No,
especially on Long Island.
His first ever show there too.
Yeah, exactly.
on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, which is massive. I saw some people who went to that. I'm a big Billy Joel fan, so I would have enjoyed that.
I'm a Long Islander, so you kind of just get. I don't live on Long Island now, but like you grow up with Billy Joel on the radio pretty much every 5 minutes on Long Island. So
he owns a stake in every radio station, so it's fine.
Phil, before we let you go, we're going to pivot completely out of wrestling because you are wearing an Islanders shirt. Joel and I are both hockey fans. What are your feelings on the Islanders this year? How far do you think they're going to go?
I think they're built to be a playoff team. I think they're a very strange regular season team right now. They have, at least I think they do now have more regulation losses than overtime losses, but I think they've been to overtime about 16 times this year already. So I like their chances. they kind of give you a headache every once in a while with a stinker like losing to the Penguins 7-0 last week. But they have great goaltending. They have good defense when it's a full 6 complement. And Bo Horvat and Matthew Barzal have been really good together. Brock Nelson and Kyle Palmieri and Pierre Engvall have been really good together. So solid, decent 4 centermen, good 6 defensemen when they're all healthy, and really, really good goaltending. I think could take you a long way. They've got a consistency that they haven't had in a long time, the last several years. So
I'll get my first great look at them. I've watched a couple games on and off, but they play my team tomorrow. So
you're an Avalanche fan.
Yes, I'm an Avs fan. Yes, so we're playing well. I think we're tied for the top in the West, but blew a 4-0 lead to Arizona the last week. That still stings.
Former Islander Devon Tays.
Oh, love him. Thank you. 2 seconds for Taves. Oh, what a deal that turned out to be. You guys, I still rock with Varlamov. Varlamov gave me some good years in an Avs uniform.
He is the best backup goalie probably in the NHL. I mean, him taking that backup role for 4 years has been really, really good. Just because he's buddies with Sorokin. So.
Yeah, we don't talk about my teams.
Yeah, Joel's teams suck. So.
Who's your hockey team?
So I grew up in Ottawa, so I'm a Sens fan. And
former Islanders coach Jack Capuano.
That's right. and I've also got the Ducks in my camp. I've been an Anaheim Ducks fan since inception. Yeah, I got the Ottawa Senators, who are currently working with the coaching staff from about 25 years ago. And I've got a Ducks team that can't seem to figure out what they're doing without their top line. So here we are.
What's funny when Cappy gets, like, people criticize him all the time for his coaching. He is the second winningest coach in New York Islanders history, behind Al Arbor. Al Arbor is way ahead of him, because Al Arbor also coached the team for like 19 years, but and won 4 Stanley Cups and 5 conference championships. But
Phil, I want to thank you for joining us, and thank you for asking the question at the Scrum. I know we in wrestling media get a bad rap online for not asking the tough questions and things like that, but you were there, you asked directly. I know you got a lot of praise for that. Well deserved. And I know the media, like, they pressed him. Tony got asked once, you asked again, he got asked again. He was going to give you the answer he was going to give you. Like, after that, you can only press him so much to just hear the same answer.
And I think it's up to other people to kind of do some, if they want to dig a little deeper into it and have some conversations about it and find out what the real story is. I think it's important for the people in AEW to understand what their options are for, if something happens, where do I go? What do I do? That kind of thing. For me, I just kind of felt like I was doing my job. I didn't really think it was anything that great, but,
the bar is low with wrestling media, Phil. Bar's very low.
But the problem is it's kind of hard to define wrestling media, much like it's hard to define what a wrestler is too. So because you have all sorts in there, and you were talking before about being afraid to ask the question. Like, I can totally get that for somebody who's never even been in a situation when they're in that kind of a setting before too. Like, if I say this, are they going to get mad? Like, for me, like, I can't really worry about that. If somebody's really going to shut access off to me, then that's their problem. And I'll figure it out from my perspective if I need to. Would like to just kind of quickly plug my show, Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations. It's pretty much just half-hour conversations with me or more. Today is actually a New Year's edition with myself and one half of the tag team, and now Vic Delicious, who people might have seen in NWA before. Just going over 2023, looking ahead to 2024. Next week, I got Paul Burchill on the show, which is pretty wild for me. So he was pretty fun to connect with. But it's every Monday it drops. And like I said, just to not misrepresent myself too, because I saw some people were like, "Oh, Phil's from USA Today." Like, I'm actually not from USA Today, like the mothership USA Today. I don't work in McLean, Virginia. My podcast, Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations, is produced by the USA Today Sports Media Group, which is why I said that during the Scrum. I actually work for Gannett, which is the parent company of USA Today, but I work for a different news site, in leadership based out of Westchester, New York. So just wanted to fully be transparent about who I am and where I'm coming from. They have the Wrestling Junkie site that's through USA Today Sports Media Group too, and I work with those guys too. Got to, give those guys a shout out to do some great work.
Wonderful.
We appreciate. Oh, go ahead, Joel.
No, go ahead, Jeremy. You're good.
I was gonna say we appreciate you joining us, and I love your podcast. I love listening to the interviews every week. We try to cover it as much as we can on the site. So I've heard many of your interviews, and you do a great job with them. So thank you for all the work that you do. And yeah, I was gonna give you a chance to plug everything. Got everything out of the way. So Phil, we appreciate you joining us, man. Thank you for getting up early with us here. I know it's been a long weekend.
Thanks so much for the invite. I really appreciate the work you guys are doing.
Thanks,
man.
Appreciate you.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.